Epistle to the Corinthians, Paul writes to them and encourages them to forgive someone who had done some pretty horrible things. And in the first letter, he says, "Why are you allowing him to do this?" and boasting about how wonderful and how loving you are. And then in the second one, well, they swung the other way. And in verse number 7 of chapter 2, verse 9, "For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether you be obedient in all things. To whom ye forgive in anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything, to whom I forgave it for your sakes, forgave I it in the person of Christ, in his presence, lest Satan should get an advantage of us. For we are not ignorant of his devices." There is this idea that Satan moves about as a roaring lion. We've been told that. And we know that he exists. We know he is against us. And we know that he would do anything to keep us from having our focus on God. In fact, to these Christians, they struggled with a problem, and it took the apostle writing twice to get them on the right track. Sometimes they would swing out too far this way, sometimes they would swing out too far that way. That's how the first century churches were. They all struggled with different things. We struggle with things, don't we? They're new things, but they're the same. They're much the same. But we shouldn't be ignorant of how Satan is going to come and get us, try to distract us, and try to steal our attention from us. I have this sermon by request, but I want you to bear with me because I would like to share with you some information to start off. I want you to make your own decisions, and then we are going to look at and see what God has to say on the subject. So we're going to gather the information necessary for it to be relevant to us today, and then we're going to see what the text of the Bible, which is a very old book, what it still says to us today. Even after thousands of years, it is not only relevant, it's completely necessary, it's required. The devil in the box. Everyone has, I left mine over there, everyone has a box, and we let it talk to us, we talk to it. It speaks to us in strange noises. It wakes us up in the middle of the night, keeps our attention. What are we focusing on? I want to talk to you about three things when considering this idea of social media and our phones. I was thinking the other day, there was an old sermon I heard, I was listening to it. This old fuddy-duddy, he was talking about the TV and how it was so wicked, the TV's going to destroy us. And I thought, wow, this old fuddy-duddy, what does he know? He just isn't with the times. And here I am. Here I am. Let me share with you what God thinks about this first. Is social media a wise tool for the church? The excuse that I hear a lot of is, well, think of all the people that we can reach if we would use the tools at our disposal. And I think that's a great reason to use it. In fact, I think any tool can be exploited for good and also for evil. You think about a screwdriver. You can use that to unscrew something, or you can use it to break into somebody's car. It's just a tool. It's not evil at its heart. So I'm not saying this is the gospel truth on this tool, but I want you to think about something as we examine this. Would you say we as Christians have been more effective in our mission for the Lord Jesus or less now that social media is available? What about you personally? Have you been more effective now that social media is at your fingertips? Did you know that you can contact millions of people all at once now? Isn't that crazy? We think of The day of Pentecost, Acts chapter 2, Peter and the other apostles stand up and they preach in front of many people. Hundreds, thousands respond. That's a lot of people. Did you know that you have the capability of reaching millions all at one time? How have you used that tool? Is it making you a more effective Christian? It's a personal question. Me personally, no. Just to be transparent. What effect does social media have on the inward man? I want to tell you a very quick story about my attention span. Most of the time I try to train it, and it's good. I was worshiping in South Carolina where my father was the preacher, and it was time for us to focus on the Lord's Supper. And we had these big windows like this going down the side of the building. And my brother Daniel and I had bikes, and we would bike everywhere. We had mountain bikes, road bikes, whatever kind of bike we could have. I would ride my bike to my job. It was wonderful. My bike had been stolen, so I had used my brother Daniel's bike. And I put it up. I forgot to put the chain on it, but it was in our backyard. While we are there sitting, about to observe the Lord's Supper, I look out the window, and on Highway 1, I see someone riding my brother Daniel's bike down the road away from the congregation. And I looked at it and I pointed, I said, Daniel, look, he's stealing your bike out of our backyard. Stealing from us. And I saw it, and he said, that is my bike. And we were just, when someone said, hey, be quiet. Okay. Did you know for the rest of the Lord's Supper, I could not focus properly because someone had stolen it from me? Not only did they steal my bike, they stole my attention. They stole everything in that moment. I couldn't focus even if I wanted to. I was angry. I was confused. I wanted my bike back. Attention is a very valuable thing, isn't it? And it's a very hard thing to get back once you lose it. Tim Wu, he's a Columbia School law professor and the author of the book The Attention Merchants, called the people who design social media sites as attention merchants, and whose business model is selling access to people's mind. He says, the attention industry needs people who are in a distracted state or who are perpetually distractible and thus open to advertising. That's the whole business model. So if you want to know what social media is, it is a distraction to open your mind so that you can be advertised to, and maybe you'll buy something. That's the whole model. The creators of it have let you know this is what we want to do. We want to distract you perpetually so that you buy something from us. That's how it makes money. In fact, have you paid recently for your social media product? I haven't. Not many people have. Billions of people use it. A quote from Tim Wu, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. I want you to think about that for a moment. If you are not paying for the product, you are the product. What is the product? Your attention. How important is our attention? We're Christians. Our minds isn't the mind the most powerful thing that we have as a Christian? Isn't it the thing? Guard the heart. Isn't that what we're supposed to do as Christians? That's our attention. What about our addiction? There is an addiction that is baked into the pie. Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist, that means he looked at what the company, the largest company in the world, was doing, and he had to decide whether it was ethical or not. What a job. He compares social media to a Vegas slot machine. He says, when we check our phones hoping that we have a notification, it's like we are pulling the lever of a slot machine hoping we hit the jackpot. In fact, he helped design it this way, and he quit his job because he said, this is evil. The ethicist said, this is evil, I don't want to be a part of it. According to Mike Brooks, PhD, in an article he wrote for Psychology Today, He said, we have a difficult time resisting our screens because of what he calls the Vegas effect, because we occasionally hit the jackpot, so to speak, when we check and then check, and then there's a notification on our phone. We continue to check and check and check. That's how it's designed. There used to be these green squares and these little blue numbers. You have one. They even said, blue, that's not working. Red will catch the attention more. Turn it from a red square to a circle. A circle is more like your eye. It helps grab your attention more. So a red circle. That's how detailed they are when they're thinking about this. Every little aspect of what is in front of you right here is designed. It is by design there to get your attention and to maintain it and to keep it as long as it can, to distract you as much as they can. And that's their job, to distract you. And the creators are telling you it's their job. They're trying to warn you. They're even quitting, saying, this is evil. Please don't use this. Did you know the owners of certain things, like Bill Gates, have you ever heard of him? He even said, I wouldn't let my children use social media. I want them to be successful. What a thing for Bill Gates to say. Tim Cook, his children are not allowed to use social media because he doesn't want them to. I wonder why aren't they creating these products for us? Why would they shield their children from these things? It seems as though there's something wrong, but they don't want us to know. That's the addiction. Everything is built to addict you in social media. It's designed that way. Now, you may say, well, I use it as a tool to share the gospel. This is one I hear a lot. I use it as a tool to keep in touch with my loved ones. That is an admirable way to use a tool. But the tool that you are using is not a phone. Everyone has a phone. You can call your loved ones whenever you want. You can get a landline and do that. That's fine. The tool that you are using is, by design, slowly morphing into something that is attached to you, a part of you. And eventually it will be in your head, in front of your eyes. It's going to become more and more a part of us as time goes on, according to the people who are making it right now. Think about this. Is this the type of tool that you want to use? So think about the apparatus. Is social media a tool? A tool is an apparatus we use for our benefit that sits patiently and waits in its toolbox for when it is needed. Social media by design is constantly tapping and rattling on the lid to get out. That's why I named this sermon, The Devil in the Box. Think about these words from Tristan Harris. It has its own goals, and it has its own way of pursuing them by using your psychology against you. That's what he said. He's warning you. Pop culture loves this idea, for some reason, of selling one's soul to Satan for some level of convenience. In 1592, there was a book written, and it turned into a play called Dr. Faustus. And Dr. Faustus, he is a smart man. He gets his degree, but he wants more power and he wants more knowledge. And so he dabbles in the necromonic arts, and he summons a devil in the story. And the devil says, I'll give you power and all knowledge to do whatever you want for 24 years. And he does, and it's a wonderful story. He gets everything that he wants, but at the end of the 24 years, his time is up. And so he tries everything he can to put the devil back in the box and say, no, I'm staying here, please. But his time does come at the end. And he thinks, I wasted my life doing everything that didn't matter. I had all the power in the world, but I still sold my soul along the way. And it was convenient. It's an interesting story. I'd encourage you to read it. But that's what the gospel tells us, isn't it? Isn't convenience, doesn't it always come at a price, a very, very high price? Isn't the Christian way to self-deny our most convenient urges and take up our cross, put ourselves to death, and follow Christ? Isn't that how we should live? Convenience is not always the answer. Even if you say, well, the tool that I have, it's a very convenient tool, that will come at a price. It always does. We love the convenience of social media and say things like, well, I use it to keep in touch with people. A sacrifice for convenience will always come at a price. What price has it had on your life? If I was going to use a hammer to build a house, I would reach into my toolbox, get my hammer, I would use it, and then I would put it back, and I would not think of my hammer anymore. Is that how it is with this tool that we're speaking of? Now, that's the groundwork. I want you to just think about that, make your own decisions. And now I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 6, and we're going to look at a few things from God's word in relation to this. Our attention, starting in verse 19 of Matthew chapter 6. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, or do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Think about this. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What do you treasure? I could boil that down and I could say, what is holding your attention? What holds your attention the most? The eye is the lamp of the body. Isn't it ironic that we take a lamp, an LED, and blast it into our eyes? It just goes along so perfectly with this idea. The eye is the lamp of the body. What light comes in and what we see and what we digest, Jesus would say in Luke chapter 24, those things are very important to us. What goes into our minds, we have to guard that. The eye is the lamp of the body. No man can serve two masters. Our attention is very valuable. Is someone else buying our attention or stealing it from us? And are we letting them under the guise of, well, I'm using it as a tool? Here's what I would suggest. If you are using something as a tool, let's say a preacher. You have a minister, and his name is Evan Manning. And you say, okay, he is a bit of a tool. He's someone that we expect to get a job done. At the end of a couple months, or let's say a year, you should look at that person and say, have you done anything? What have you done? Have you been successful? Jesus would say, you shall know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits. If I don't do anything, I don't deserve to be a minister. Even if I sound like I do things, there has to be fruit. There has to be something produced. There has to be at least hard work and effort put into something. Let's say this is our tool. We have a tool and we say, well, this is why I use it and I think it's good. Has it helped? I want you to honestly ask yourself, has this tool that is designed to hurt me, has it helped? I will say that I could use it for this, and here's all the good things that could be done with it, but what has been done with it? And what is being done with it in your life? Now, you may take this route. You may say, well, I haven't done anything. And you may turn around today and start using it for good for the rest of your life. And to that, I would be I would commend you and say, great job. Because somebody has to do it. But for some people, I would say most, you'll be able to look at your life and you'll say, this tool has not only done nothing for me, but it has hurt me. It's made me feel bad about myself. I've expected certain things from it. I think a certain way now because I use it. And I haven't really used it for the cause of Christ. And keeping up with, I use it more for stalking, not really keeping up with people. Honestly take a look at your life and say, what am I using this? Has it produced any good fruit? If it hasn't, maybe do something about it. You are filled with light if your perception is good. Do you see good things? Are you actively filling your mind with godliness? Can you see and notice God in this world through his creation, his people, and his world? Have you lost sight of that? Wherever we are looking, that's what's filling our heads. You are filled with darkness if you cannot see. Who is controlling the lamp of your body? Some huge corporation whose only goal is to use you for advancing their advertisement or for buying things? Social media's goal is to darken your heart so that you are easily manipulated and distracted. But God is here trying to tell you to open your eyes. See what is around you. See the truth. We should not be ignorant of Satan's devices. He is going to use every device that he can to darken your mind, to distract you, to keep you distracted for as long as possible. What about our addiction? Our addiction, as Jesus would state, is to be seen. Look at Matthew chapter 6, starting in verse 1 through 4. Take heed that you do not your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogue and in the streets, that they may have glory from men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. Are you advertising your good deeds on social media? Oh, it fills my stomach with disgust when I see, this is what I did today. Let me show you what I did. And you know what the excuse is? Well, how are they going to know that the church is growing unless I post? I would suggest that you listen to the last part, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. Did you know that when Jesus started his ministry, he performed a miracle, and then he said to his disciples, do you remember what he said? Don't tell anyone. And what happened? Everyone found out immediately, because that's how it works, isn't it? But when you, who are a fallible and very malleable human being, take matters into your own hands to advertise self and to prop up yourself, that's just not good for us as people. God understands us a lot more than we think. In fact, that's why he tells us to give. Give money, sacrifice things, that's counterintuitive. Yes, but it's good for you mentally. This helps you as a Christian. You will grow spiritually. That's counterintuitive. What about, well, keep silent about the good deeds that you yourself are doing. Jesus did it. It spread throughout all the world. We're still talking about it today. In fact, he tells other people to, well, don't tell. When you do a charitable deed, just don't tell anybody. Interesting. Now, in the church, we here are about encouraging other people to get to the work of the Lord. So if I say, hey, we're going to evangelize, tomorrow come with us, that's different. What I'm talking about is advertising. This was done. Look at me. I'm so glorious. I do so much. Isn't that great? That's not good for you. It's not good. But isn't that what we do on social media? Isn't that the whole point? Look at me. Look at me. It's the best. Look at how shiny and beautiful my life is. How about this next one, verse 5 through 7? And when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the street, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut the door, pray to the Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. At the end there, when Jesus is saying that, who is he talking about? Who is going to hear these people for their many words? Do they think that God will hear them more for saying vain repetitions and being bloviating, as someone called me once? No, that's not how it happens. You don't say more and more and more to God, and oh, now I hear you. God is not hard of hearing. In fact, he says that he's not hard of hearing, that he cannot hear you, but your sin has separated between you and your God. That's what separates you from God. When you pray, do it by yourself. Do it alone. Don't do it to be seen. Now, what about in worship? Shouldn't we pray as a group? Yes, of course. We should pray as a group. You know what might be wrong is if we prayed and then we took the prayer and we advertised it and we said, look at how spiritual we are over here. Listen to this prayer. Well, that wouldn't be right, would it? That would be weird. In fact, we would go, something about that doesn't feel right. It feels like we're trying to build ourselves up instead of to call on God for his mercy and his grace in times of need, which is what it's for in the first place. What about the next one? Verse 16 through 18. I love this one. Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites with a sad countenance, a pained countenance, for they disfigure their faces that they may appear to men to be fasting. Now, let's pause there for a second. You exercise, you eat healthy, you fast. Have you ever been doing that? And the next day you go, so I had a tough exercise. And you show it on your face. Yeah, that's easy. That's easy to do. What about I'm fasting? I'm not eating because I'm going through something spiritually and I want to grow closer with God. I'm trying to dedicate my life to God properly. So I say, I just haven't eaten 48 hours. I'm trying to be more spiritual. Could you imagine? People were doing that. And in fact, I'm sure that some of the people Jesus was talking to right then had done that. That's how Jesus was. He knew their hearts. He knew what was going on in their mind. He knew what they had done. I'm sure one or two of the people that day was probably doing that. Maybe they showed up to the mountain and they said, well, I'm fasting. I'm trying to become more spiritual. Let's see what this guru has to say. And then he starts talking about that. And they probably think, oops. Do we do that, though, with social media, though? Trying to go to the next level. Christ is working in my life, and I have gone to the next level. Fast with me on Thursdays. Fast Fridays, so we can do this. Okay, that's great. Encourage other people to do it, but be very careful, Jesus is saying, because along the way, you'll find that your attention shifts off of God himself and wanting to become closer with him, and you'll then start noticing, because the tool is designed that way, you'll start noticing people aren't really noticing me as much anymore. And when that starts to bother you, burn it. Just get rid of it, okay? Turn back to God. Don't be like the hypocrites. Let's keep reading in Matthew 6, 16 through 18. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So who should see us challenging ourselves? Who? Who is the only person in the world that should see us challenging ourselves? Well, you might say your spouse. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to be one with somebody else and you can do this together. But God the Father is the one that should see you. You want to get stronger? You want to pray? You want to fast? You want people to notice you? It should be God who notices you. And then who should people notice when they see me? It's God, and only God. We should do our very best to get out of the way completely and to show God. Now, you may use a tool like social media, like our phones, as an effective method to do that. And to you, I would say, good job. You're wiser than I am. But this is a very dangerous tool that we're using. And we give it to children. In fact, people don't know that they're giving it to their children. They don't even know what it is. It's just, well, I can get in touch with you. Give them a brick that has 9 buttons on it that can receive a signal. That's my recommendation. Just give them a brick that you can hear them on the other side. Why? Because the designers themselves are warning you and saying, this is designed to hurt you, and we're sorry that we did it. I have names, I have interviews, I've got people saying, we're sorry that we did this. We shouldn't have made this. In fact, children shouldn't have this. So get away from it. So that's our addiction. Turn to Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No man can serve 2 masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. This is our apparatus. One master. That's what we use. There is a book. It's very old. In it are the questions of life. We have all things that pertain to life and godliness here. God showed us how to spread the gospel to the world. In fact, that's something that we are really pushing for in this congregation. And we're going to be studying and learning and practicing sharing the gospel or teaching people the gospel. Tools are wonderful, but we shouldn't be ignorant of Satan's devices. I want you to think about your life for a moment. Have you been serving Christ? How have you been using the talents given you? I like to think of that parable that Jesus gave. There is a 1-talent man. He's given 1 talent, another 2 talents, another 5 talents. And then the master goes away into a far country to return at a later date, and they are expected to do something with those tools that they've been given. And when the master returns, the 5-talent man now has 10 talents. That's good. You shall know them by their fruits, Jesus would also say. His fruit was productive. That's good. The 2-talent man now has double, 4 talents. That is also good. He's very productive. But the 1-talent man, he said, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown. What are you doing with the tools that God has given you? What do you have to show for it? That's what I'm trying to ask myself at this stage in my life. Have I borne any fruit from the work that I'm doing? Would you help me in doing that as a congregation? Will you, each individual one of you, get behind me and maybe help someone else who has a zeal? If someone asks you, you know what I would like to do? I'd like to have a Bible study with someone who's not a Christian. A fellow Christian says that. Can you help them do that? Do that. And you know what you don't need for that? You don't need someone else in your brain stealing your attention away 24/7. You need to focus on one master. I hope these words of encouragement have been encouraging. I hope that I've exhorted you to focus on the proper thing, which is Christ himself, more than the things that are designed to steal away our attention. If you'd like any of that information, or you have a question about something, come see me afterwards. I have a wide library of help for this topic. If you are not a Christian, the service of one master cannot begin until you pledge your service to him. You have to hear these words, the words that Jesus has spoken: I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And then you have to be able to make the decision and say, well, I would like to come to the Father by you. I'd like to change my life. I'd like to repent upon hearing that you are far away from God. I would like to change my life so that I can become a Christian. You can do that. You can confess his sweet name, and then you can be baptized into Christ. And as we read in Acts chapter 2, they were added to the church, this church that we still are a part of today, the Lord's church. And he said, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. That's what we're expecting. If you would like to be added to the Lord's church this afternoon, I ask that you do so. You can come forward and make your wishes known while we stand and sing.